Stay sharp, boys. We're here for the Admiral, nothing else. Commander Tar Ven's voice sliced through the cramped darkness of the shuttle hold. His gloved hand clenched around the rifle grip as the rear hatch hissed open, revealing the Dominion's derelict outpost ahead. A structure slumped against the icy ridge of the Lycan Rift, its spires cracked and blackened by forgotten energy discharges. The air was thin and brittle as they advanced. Ven's breath fogged in the recycled suit atmosphere, but he ignored the cold that clung to his skin beneath the impact armor. Snow crunched beneath their boots and the Dominion's battered sigil loomed overhead, half buried in drifting ice. He raised a hand, signaling the team to halt. "Scan the perimeter. We don't leave gaps." Corporal Jorvin moved up, the muffled scrape of his exosuit servos the only sound. "Thermal scans clear, Commander. No power signatures, no patrols. They abandoned this hole." Ven nodded once. "Stay low. If they left anything behind, it'll be buried deeper." They moved in silence, crossing the threshold of the outpost. The doors yawed open under the pressure of their entry torches, metal groaning in protest. Darkness swallowed them whole, broken only by the dull glow of the squad's helmet lamps. Inside, the Dominion's once gleaming halls were stripped bare, consoles cracked and floors littered with data slate fragments. Every breath tasted of dust and stale air, the cold biting deeper in these sealed corridors. Ven paused, eyes tracking the jagged shards of alien technology scattered like broken teeth. They wanted this place scrubbed. "They left in a hurry," he muttered, voice low. The team fanned out, weapons trained on the shadows. Lieutenant Revik moved closer, his eyes scanning the battered wall markings. "They broke protocol, sir. No decontamination seals. They wanted this site erased, not preserved. Then we find what they didn't erase," Ven said, stepping forward. His gloved fingers brushed against a Dominion console, flickering weakly as it sparked to life under his touch. A cracked display lit up with alien script, half burned, half lucid. He read it in silence, the meaning clear. They turned their own tactics inward. Couldn't break him, couldn't break themselves. "Sir, over here," Corporal Brass called from the next chamber. Ven followed, his pulse quickening. The room beyond was an interrogation cell. Walls of cold alloy etched with Dominion runes. In the center, a chair. The Dominion's infamous interrogation throne. Lay in ruins, one restraint hanging by a thread. And there, shackled to the floor beside it, was Admiral Valen Ran. Ran's head lifted slowly, eyes narrowing against the helmet lights. His face was gaunt but unbroken, his gaze level and unreadable. He didn't flinch at their approach, didn't reach for them. He simply watched. Ven swallowed once, throat tight. "Admiral." "It's Ven. We're getting you out." Ran didn't speak. He didn't nod. He only looked at them, the deep lines of strain on his face betraying nothing else. The silence pressed in, thick as the cold. For a moment, Ven felt the weight of every unsaid word between them. Rask knelt, cutting the bindings with a flick of his plasma cutter. Sparks sizzled, the scent of scorched metal filling the air. Ran's wrists fell free, but he didn't move, didn't attempt to rise. Ven crouched beside him, lowering his voice. "Sir, Dominion's gone from this sector. You're safe now." Ran's eyes met his. Dark, steady, unyielding. Still no words. Ven could feel his own heart hammering in his chest. This wasn't shock. This was choice. Ran was refusing to give them Dominion's game. No words, no explanation, no sign of compromise. "Get him in the sled," Ven ordered. "We're leaving." Two soldiers lifted Ran with careful, deliberate hands. His weight felt too light in the exosuit's reinforced arms, but he stood as they guided him to the gravity sled, his eyes never straying from Ven's. They moved swiftly, every footstep a quiet defiance of the Dominion's failure. As they crossed the threshold of the chamber, Ven paused. His eyes fell on the shattered interrogation chair. Twisted, its seat cracked like an old bone. The Dominion's device, meant to break minds, left in ruin. In that ruin, Ven saw the truth. They'd tried to crack Ran open, but they'd broken their own faith in domination instead. Outside, the wind had picked up, driving icy crystals against their visors and flurries. The sled whined under the weight of its cargo, but it moved smoothly, repulsors lifting them above the uneven ground. Ven took point, scanning the horizon for any sign of Dominion remnant forces. Nothing stirred. The silence was absolute. Brevik walked beside him, eyes on the Admiral. "Commander, what if he doesn't speak at all? What if... whatever they did?" "He's alive," Ven cut in, voice low. "That's what matters. His silence is his message. We're not here to force him to speak." As the team approached the extraction point, the cold bit deeper, numbing Ven's fingers through the gloves. Every breath tasted of ice and recycled air. The waiting shuttle loomed ahead, its hull battered but functional, bearing Earth's markings in stark white against the frost. The landing gear settled into the snow with a muted shudder, ramp already lowering to receive them. Inside, the hull lights glowed warm, a stark contrast to the frozen world outside. The Admiral was secured at the center of the hold, gravity sled clamped in place. Ven approached him slowly, removing his helmet to meet Ran's eyes without any barrier. "Admiral," he said, his voice a steady promise in the quiet. "You're home now. You don't have to give them anything." Ran blinked once, slow and deliberate. His lips parted, but no sound came. He closed his mouth again, his stare as resolute as any command Ven had ever known. The silence spoke more than words ever could. The engines of the shuttle rumbled to life beneath their feet, the deck vibrating in a slow, measured rhythm, the door sealed behind them, the cold world outside vanishing into memory. As the shuttle lifted, Ven kept his gaze on Ran. He didn't need the Admiral to say a single word. In his silence, Earth's refusal was complete. "Set course for Garrick's watch," Ven ordered, his voice clear and calm. "Let the Council see what the Dominion tried and failed to bury." He felt the shift of the shuttle, the steady pull as they broke atmosphere. Ran remained silent, a still point in the metal hold, his breathing slow and unhurried. Around him, the team moved with quiet efficiency, each man's eyes catching on Ran's face before flicking away in silent recognition. Outside the porthole, the stars cut through the darkness like knives of cold light. Inside, there was only the quiet resolve of men who knew what they carried, not just their Admiral, but a testament to Earth's refusal to be broken by any alien creed. Ben took his place at the command station, the data displays flickering to life with tactical overlays and crew status readouts. He ignored them for a moment, watching Ran. A man returned not in words but in absolute defiance. A man who, in refusing to speak, had become the final voice of Earth's resolve. The shuttle's engines carried them higher, leaving the Dominion's failed prison to vanish behind them. There would be no last words, no final statement to the enemy. Ran had said all that needed to be said in the silence he chose. That silence was now Earth's shield, and its answer. Ven exhaled once, steady. "Secure all channels, no transmissions. Earth's only statement is what we carry home." The shuttle's landing clamps shuddered into place against the cold docking ring of Garrick's watch, the structure's clean lines and disciplined geometry rising above the orbital horizon. Ven stood at the hatch, eyes narrowed at the stark glow of the platform's directional beacons. His breath misted in the recycled air of his helmet as the ramp engaged with a dull, final hiss. The council chamber was a circle of reinforced alloy and black stone, its walls inset with bands of data relays and command feeds. Frost clung to the viewports, the distant sun a sullen light beyond the station's hull. Director Learn waited at the central table, posture rigid, hands flat against the polished surface as he watched Ven lead Ven in. The silence between them was deeper than any corridor of the Dominion. Ven removed his helmet, setting it beside him with deliberate care. "Admiral Ran secured," he said, voice stripped of any hesitation. Ran stood a pace behind him, eyes clear, expression unbroken. He offered no greeting, no word. Learn nodded, reading that silence as surely as any report. "Commander Ven," Learn said evenly, his voice measured as he gestured to the hollow table's embedded displays. The Council has been briefed on the circumstances of the retrieval. We're ready to hear your assessment. His gaze flicked to Ran, but found nothing there. No betrayal of thought, no sign of yield. Ven drew a slow breath, forcing his voice steady. The Dominion abandoned the site because they failed to fracture him. Their instruments were turned to scrap, their scripts half-purged in panic. Admiral Rand did not speak once. His refusal was not a lapse, it was a calculated rejection of their entire framework. Their culture depends on language to define control. In silence, he stripped them of that power. A rustle of boots shifted around the table. Commander Drass leaned forward, eyes narrow. We've seen the recordings from the exfiltration, Ven. Their command codes were still cycling through the walls, half orders, half chaos. They tried to purge the data but couldn't finish. Ven met his stare levelly. Because he broke them. They tried to shape him to their will, and he turned that act of control against them. The Dominion's entire psychological order is built on speaking the first word and forcing the other to respond. When Ran refused, their leverage failed. A quiet click as Learn tapped the display to life, bringing up Dominion fleet deployments and secure Earth channels. Then we turn that fracture into a weapon, he said, voice low. The Council has agreed, no further diplomatic overtures. They will find no acknowledgement of their entreaties in any channel. We will not answer them, not with envoys or words. Rand's eyes never flickered. Ven felt a shiver down his back. No fear, only the realization that this was not the absence of voice, but the presence of an idea, sharpened and final. He spoke again, more certain than before. Our next step is to use that same Dominion weakness, this belief in linguistic supremacy. We infiltrate their relay architecture with false commands, overwrite their own protocols. If they see language as their weapon, we turn every word against them. Director Learn's hand closed to a fist. You're proposing the deployment of data swarm infiltration? Controlled vectors to seed confusion in their relay structure? Yes, Ven confirmed. We use their arrogance. Every Dominion relay broadcasts their belief that order must be spoken aloud. We seed conflicting orders through infiltration vectors, let them drown in a war of their own words. Silence from us, chaos in them. Around the table, the Council's officers exchanged glances. Cold resolve settled over the chamber. Drass cleared his throat, his voice low and tight. We've run simulations. If we do this, the Dominion's own chains of command will tear themselves apart from the inside. But it will take absolute focus. No half measures. Learn's eyes met Ven's, the only sound the faint shift of armored boots on the polished floor. Commander, you're certain Rand's silence is enough to anchor this strategy? That his refusal will hold the fleet's line when there are no orders to be spoken? Ven turned his gaze to Rand. The Admiral's face was a mask of calm, the faintest rise and fall of breath beneath the reinforced collar. He hadn't moved since stepping into the room. Sir, Ven said, voice quiet, your silence will be our standard. Earth will speak only through action. Is that your will? Rand's eyes met his. No word was given, yet in that stillness, Ven read it as clearly as any battle order. He turned back to the Council. It is enough. Learn exhaled, slow and steady, the decision final in the line of his shoulders. Then it settled, no further transmissions. Earth's voice ends here. He raised his head, the thin light of the Council's banners catching in the steel of his eyes. Deploy the infiltration vectors, let the Dominion see nothing but the chaos of their own making. A low murmur of affirmation rippled through the chamber. The Council rose in sequence, each man's face a study in cold purpose. Ven felt the moment settle into his bones. No speeches, no grand gestures, only the clarity of purpose that left no room for hesitation. He walked with Learn down the narrow corridor that led to the operations wing, boots striking the alloy floor with quiet resolve. Beyond the reinforced door, Earth's data specialists waited, heads bowed over relay schematics and infiltration blueprints. The air smelled of recycled coolant and charged circuits, the hum of data transfer, a low vibration underfoot. Ben stopped beside a projection console, watching the lines of code spill across the display. Each packet of data was a knife, every line of false command a wound cut into the Dominion structure. "I want no gaps in coverage," he said evenly. "Every infiltration team will operate in silence, no signals to Earth once inside. They will be our echo, nothing more." One of the data officers, a young man named Darwin, looked up from his readouts. "Commander, what if they adapt? What if they find a way to mute our signals, counter the infiltration?" Ben's voice was calm as he leaned in. "Then they fight ghosts, Darwin. We're not here to be heard. We're here to erase their foundation for speaking at all." He turned, letting the steady glow of the display paint the lines of his face. "Bring up the infiltration vectors," he ordered, the final note of decision in his voice. "Let's begin." As the officers moved, the chamber flickered with activity. Ben could feel the weight of Earth's resolve in every ordered movement, every silent exchange of glances. The mission had become more than an act of sabotage. It was a statement, written in the cold logic of data streams and the unyielding silence of those who had survived the Dominion's worst. He glanced back once at the doorway where Rand stood, a quiet sentinel in the hall beyond. There was no need for words. In his refusal to speak, the Admiral had spoken more than any treaty or broadcast could ever hope to match. The infiltration vectors came online, pathways of false orders mapped across Dominion space. Ven's hand hovered over the final command, his fingers steady. "Execute," he said quietly. And in that single word, Earth's voice ended. The infiltration teams moved with mechanical calm, each man's breath sharp and measured in the cold recesses of the transport's hold. Ven watched them from the observation deck of Garrick's watch. The data swarm infiltration drones lined out on the console before him. Small, spider-like machines built to slip between Dominion relay nodes, their surfaces glinting under the muted station lights. Below, the Dominion's relay grid flickered with false calm. Earth's data swarm infiltration had begun with an elegance that needed no explosives, no open violence. Every drone moved with a silent promise to turn the Dominion's own language into their undoing. "Launch vectors engaged," Lieutenant Morin confirmed from the console beside him. His voice held a tension edged in excitement, but Ven's tone was steady. "Let them loose. We speak only through this." The console's readouts shifted in fluid motion, lines of infiltration code mapping pathways into the Dominion's command relay. Each drone flickered to life, status lights gone cold as they slipped out of the launch bay. Tiny shapes disappeared into the night, carried by thrusters that left no glow to track, no thermal bloom to betray them. Ben's eyes stayed locked on the projection of Dominion fleet movements. "Report any deviations. We hold the line through silence, not through reaction." "Understood, Commander." Marin's fingers flew over the input keys, the tactile pressure of the console buttons grounding his focus. His shoulders squared with each line of code transmitted, each infiltration marker updated in real time. Across the Dominion sector, relay nodes that had once poured out orders now flickered with false commands. The data swarm infiltrators attached to the communication spires with magnetic limbs, seeding them with commands in Dominion script. The cold logic of Earth's incursion was simple. Mimic their language, echo it back twisted. Let them hear orders that would never come. Far from Garrick's watch, Dominion council halls flared with heated light and rising voices. High Warden Salcor swept his eyes across the chamber, the layered ridges of his brow furrowed. "Where are the confirmations? Why do these orders contradict? Who speaks for the council now?" Lord Innick rose from his seat, voice straining under the weight of confusion. "High Warden, our relay stations report conflicting directives. Withdraw. Advance. Withdraw again. They are either in error or we are betrayed." Salcor's fingers tapped the edge of the table, claws clicking against the polished stone. "No error exists in the Council's word. These transmissions must be human trickery. An assault in silence." Another voice rose from the chamber's edge. "The silence of the human fleet is their weapon. They have twisted our own commands against us." The statement hung in the air like a blade, and Salkor's jaw clenched in denial. Ven listened from his command seat, the distant echoes of Dominion transmissions captured by Earth's monitors. He could almost see the cold panic threading through the alien council, their surety splintering as Earth's infiltrators burrowed deeper. On the surface of the Dominion's communications relay, the data swarm drones worked tirelessly. Thin appendages reached out, tapping into conduits of power and data. Tiny circuits blinked, each flicker another false directive woven into the Dominion's channels. As they labored, the Dominion's own orders fractured in the air. Marin looked up from the feed, his face pale under the glow of the console. They are already turning on themselves. We're tracking 3 Dominion ships exchanging fire near the Turvix cluster. Their commanders believe they've been ordered to purge each other. Ven leaned closer, reading the feed. And what of their council? Do they understand yet how complete this is? Very argue, Commander, Marin replied, his voice tightening. They argue because they must. It's all they have left. In the Dominion's High Council chamber, the air had grown heavy with the weight of discord. Salkor slammed a hand against the table. This is your failure, Innik. You assured us the human mind could be broken. You said their silence would collapse under our weight. Innik's voice cracked as he fought back. I said their will would break. I did not understand this. Refusal. They gave us no terms, no words to turn against them. Salkor's snarl was a harsh rasp, breath ragged. You let their silence become a command, and now we are left with only echoes. In the cold of Garrick's watch, Fen felt the echo of that fury as a quiet affirmation. The Dominion had built their empire on speech, on the belief that words would always forge reality. Earth's answer had been a silence that shaped them in return, a silence that seeded doubt in every line of Dominion code. He looked down at the infiltration vectors, each one a thread of deceit wound into the Dominion's relay grid. They are fighting themselves, he said softly, voice carrying the weight of that truth. Let them exhaust their faith in words. Let them choke on the contradictions. Rand watched from the far side of the deck, his eyes fixed on the tactical displays but offering no word. He didn't need to speak. In his silence, Earth's purpose was as complete as the fracture growing in Dominion lines. The infiltration drones continued their quiet labor, each connection another nail in the Dominion's coffin of language. They didn't rush. They didn't falter. They simply worked, the way Earth's fleet had learned to survive, through patience and absolute clarity of purpose. Ven could see the map of Dominion networks fracturing in real time. Ships that once moved as a single blade of conquest now turned against one another in confusion. Each relay that had once reinforced their command structure now bled uncertainty. He turned to Marin. Monitor the collapse. We will not intervene unless they seek to break through. Our purpose is to let them drown in their own tongues. Marin gave a short nod, sweat beading along his brow. Understood, Commander. In the Dominion Council, the shouting grew, the once smooth cadence of alien authority splintering into overlapping arguments. Salkor rose, cloak rippling in the heated air. Find me the source. Find me the origin of these contradictions. We will not be undone by silence. But there was no origin to find. Earth had given them nothing to strike at, only the mirror of their own reliance on spoken command. Ven watched them falter, his own breath calm in the chill air of the observation deck. Commander, Marin said softly, the infiltration is complete across the central relay arc. They will see only what we wish them to see now. Ven's hand rested on the edge of the console. Then let them see their own ruin. No need for triumph, no need for further violence. The Dominion's illusions of control had cracked in the moment Earth chose not to speak. The data swarm drones were the last message they would receive. Lines of falsehood that turned the Dominion's words into weapons against themselves. Ven looked once more at Rand, his silence a shield for every man in Earth's fleet. End the feed, he said. Let the Dominion's echoes finish this. Marin complied, and the chamber's lights dimmed to a low, cold glow. Outside the viewport, the Dominion's relay grid flickered and fractured. no longer a single voice, but a chorus of doubt and fury. And in that quiet shatter of alien words, Earth had found its victory. The infiltration grid fell quiet as Dominion relay stations choked on conflicting orders. Earth's council chamber was darkened, every screen muted except for a single channel, Dominion envoy Salkin's transmission flickering into existence with the weight of ceremonial intent. His projection towered in the center of the room, a cold glint in the alien's eyes as he surveyed the gathered officers of Earth's Fleet Command. Director Learn sat at the head of the table, posture calm and still. His gloved hands rested flat on the polished composite, no tension visible in his shoulders. Ven stood at his right, eyes fixed on Salkin's flickering outline. The chamber was silent but for the soft click of the console relays adjusting to the Dominion's ornate frequency. Salkin's voice filled the room, each word sharpened by the deliberate enunciation of a speaker who believed in the absolute weight of his titles. Earth's Council, hear me, he began, his gaze sweeping across the men arrayed before him. Your infiltration ends here. We have seen your sabotage. We have witnessed your betrayal of protocol. Dominion Command will tolerate no further insult. No one moved. Learn's eyes stayed on Salkin's projection, unblinking, his breathing slow and even. The silence stretched out like the space between stars, measured and deliberate. Salkin paused, his expression tightening as he continued. I offer you this final chance to surrender with dignity. Your fleets will stand down, your officers will yield their commands. In exchange, Earth's worlds will be spared Dominion reprisal. This is your one path to survival. He waited. Learn did not lean forward. He did not so much as shift in his chair. The air in the chamber seemed to hold its breath around him, each man in Earth's Fleet Command taking their cue from the director's unwavering stillness. Salkin's eyes narrowed. He pressed closer to the edge of his projection, as if his presence could bridge the distance. Do you hear me, Director? Do you understand the finality of your situation? Still, no one spoke. The only sound was the faint whisper of the projection's energy, its flickering light washing cold across the council's faces. Vin could feel the controlled strain in the room, the refusal to fill that void with any human voice. This was not hesitation, it was rejection, complete and without compromise. Salkin's hands closed into fists at his sides. Your silence is not strength, it is cowardice. Earth will answer me. Earth will acknowledge its defeat. Learn's eyes stayed locked on the envoy's face, unblinking. No reply came. The weight of that silence seemed to push back against the Dominion's envoy, each heartbeat in the chamber a quiet rebuke. Finally, Salkin's voice cracked with the first thread of doubt. You will not speak. You believe you can shame the Dominion with this, void? His breath grew sharper, the lines of control in his posture beginning to crack. Then I will declare Earth's submission myself. Your silence is the Dominion's triumph. He turned away, the projection's image pivoting as he began to speak into a data slate mounted at his side. Transmit to the High Council. Earth's leadership has chosen to yield in silence. The human fleets are broken. Their defiance is no more. Ven watched the shift in Salkin's shoulders, the tremor that betrayed his desperation. Salkin wanted Earth's words, needed them, to validate his own narrative. In their absence, he was forced to build a lie. The projection flickered once more as Salkin turned back to face them. Your silence is the Dominion's proof, he said, voice cold and brittle. We will broadcast this throughout the sectors. Your refusal to speak will be the sign of your capitulation. Still, Learn said nothing. The silence pressed closer, filling the room until even Salkin seemed to falter under its weight. Finally, with a snarl of frustration, he cut the transmission. His image vanished, leaving the council chamber washed in the cold, white light of the console relays. Learn's eyes shifted at last to the gathered commanders. He will tell the Dominion what he must to hold his authority, he said, voice low. Let him. Let them believe Earth's silence is fear. Let them speak lies we will never dignify with a single reply. Ven leaned forward, his own breath steady. He's already seeded his own undoing. When the Dominion's fleets act on those false orders, they'll be stepping into a trap of their own making. Learn's gaze moved to the data officer at the edge of the chamber. Initiate the final stage of the infiltration. Activate Vanguard protocol. Let Salkin's lie become the snare that breaks them. The officer's fingers moved quickly across the console, each command entered with mechanical calm. Vanguard protocol primed, he said, voice clipped. Data swarm infiltration will redirect Dominion command signals to pre-selected targets. False fleets, false bases, false wars. Burns stood slowly, the smooth lines of his uniform catching the dim glow of the chamber lights. Earth will not speak. Earth will not explain. Let them choke on the weight of their own confidence. Van watched the officers rise to their tasks, their movements sure and deliberate. No one questioned the order. No one hesitated. The silence that had once been the Dominion's tool of control was now Earth's weapon. An erasure of every alien demand, every alien claim. He walked with Learn to the Council's observation platform, the viewport offering a clear view of Earth's fleet formations. Ships glided in cold lines of readiness, their hulls reflecting the distant sun's light. There was no roar of engines here, no fanfare of conquest, only the steady rhythm of a fleet that knew its course. Learn spoke quietly, his eyes on the fleet's formation. This is not defiance for the sake of pride. It is the end of every Dominion claim that we must answer to them. Ben nodded. And they will not hear another word from us. Across the Dominion sectors, Salkin's broadcast spread. His voice was clipped, authoritative, as he recited Earth's false capitulation. Dominion warlords watched from their command spires, nodding at the words they wanted to hear. But already the infiltration drones were rewriting those same channels, turning them into a labyrinth of contradiction and misdirection. Each relay that carried Salkin's lie became another fracture in the Dominion's hold on its fleets. Orders layered over each other in an endless snarl of falsehoods. One by one, the Dominion's fleet commanders would find themselves staring into a gulf of conflicting commands, unsure which voice to follow. In the council chamber, Learn turned away from the viewport. "Prepare the final message to our crews," he said, his voice as steady as the cold metal beneath his feet. "They will speak no words. They will acknowledge no transmission. Earth's reply will be the silence of action alone." Ben's throat tightened as he drew a breath. "Understood, Director." The council chamber settled into a quiet rhythm of readiness. Officers checked data feeds and adjusted infiltration vectors, their movements methodical and unbroken. No one spoke of what they felt in the silence that had become their final stance. As the Vanguard protocol engaged, Dominion relay stations flickered with the weight of their own illusions. The calm of Earth's council chamber was unshaken by the fury that would soon spread through the alien fleets. And watched Rand standing in the corner of the chamber, still silent, still a sentinel. In that quiet, Earth's answer to the Dominion's demands was final. No voice, no submission. Only the cold resolve of a people who would no longer be defined by alien words. Vanguard protocol engaged with the quiet finality of a blade drawn in darkness. On the flagship's operations deck, Commander Ven watched infiltration paths update across the central projection table, each vector a narrow channel into the Dominion's communication lattice. The room was still but for the low rustle of uniforms, the muted shuffle of boots as officers leaned in to verify data streams and adjust infiltration directives. The air held the faint scent of coolant from the console relays, a crisp tang that cut through the recycled oxygen. Ven's eyes stayed locked on the shifting lines of the Dominion's relay map, each node marked in cold white as Earth's infiltration drones anchored deeper into the alien architecture. "Status on the relay nodes?" he asked, his tone flat, more observation than question. Lieutenant Corrin responded, fingers tapping the console keys with quiet focus. "Vanguard protocol vectors have secured relay nodes in sectors Korath and Pellis. Dominion transmissions are now feeding false attack and withdrawal orders simultaneously." Ben gave a slow nod. "Maintain the separation of signals. Let them believe every order is legitimate until the weight of contradiction shatters their ranks. The Dominion's relay stations had been designed as spires of control, tall, faceted structures that pulsed with data streams and shifting tactical overlays. Now, Earth's infiltration drones had crawled into their conduits, rewriting them from within. Tiny, efficient constructs, their bodies barely larger than a man's fist, attached themselves to Dominion data cores like parasites. They moved in deliberate patterns, every relay a fresh stage for the quiet conquest. Across the Dominion fleet, confusion was no longer a possibility, it had become a fact. Ven listened to intercepted transmissions from the Dominion's command channels. Alien voices, once crisp and sure, now cracked with uncertainty. Orders to advance collided with orders to retreat, each voiced with the same authority, each a nail driven deeper into the aliens' faith in their own structures. High Warlord Salkor's voice crackled across the intercepted feed, fury tempered only by disbelief. "Who authorized this withdrawal? I see no mark of the Council's seal. Who dares to countermand me?" In another relay, Lord Jekker's voice rang out, anger masking his confusion. "You are the traitor, Salkor. Your commands lead to slaughter. I have received orders direct from High Council to hold position. You would see us scattered." On the flagship's observation deck, the projection of Dominion formations flickered as alien ships wavered, adjusting positions in fragmented patterns. Ven's voice was calm as he studied the shifting formations. "The Dominion's own faith in their spoken word is the fracture we need. They cannot accept a world where every command is suspect." Commander Drass stood nearby, eyes scanning the feed. "They built their fleets around the absolute authority of their relay orders. Now they have no ground to stand on." Ben shifted his gaze to the outer viewport, where the cold lines of Earth's fleet waited. The ships held formation with a disciplined steadiness, silent, unprovoked by the chaos unfolding in the Dominion's ranks. Beyond them, the Dominion's own ships drifted like knives turned inward, unable to decide who to strike. Inside the Dominion Council's chambers, panic coiled through the air. Salkor slammed a fist against the edge of the relay console, claws scraping lines of frustration. "Find the source," he roared. "These orders must be an illusion. Human treachery. Someone speaks in our voice." Technicians scrambled to comply, eyes wide and voices clipped as they scanned the data streams pouring across the Dominion's networks. Their screens showed lines of alien script layered over each other, each command encoded in the Dominion's own language, each indistinguishable from the real. One technician's voice shook as he spoke. "High Warlord, the orders come from within our relay cores. Every verification marker is intact." Salker's jaw tightened, a slow hiss of breath between his teeth. "Then we fight not the humans, but ourselves." On the Earth flagship, Ven turned to Corin. "Advance infiltration to the final relay tier. Spread contradictory orders to the inner fleet groups. Do not let them find a single voice they can trust." Corin's fingers moved across the console, the screens responding with muted clicks and status updates. Infiltration advancing. Dominion relay cores are now the very echo of their own ruin. Rand stood at the rear of the operations deck, his silence more than observation. It was command in its own right. Ven felt the Admiral's presence as a weight in the room, a quiet certainty that needed no voice to be understood. Rand watched the shifting relay maps with a calm that cut deeper than any shouted order. On the Dominion's flagship, Lord Innick tried to reassert control, his voice straining against the tide of confusion. "You will hold your lines. You will not yield to ghosts. Dominion fleets do not falter." But even as he spoke, Earth's infiltration drone seeded new commands into the relay's digital veins. His own officers stared at conflicting orders blinking across their consoles, hands hesitating over weapons that no longer held a target. Back aboard Garrick's watch, Director Learn's voice came over the channel, his tone low but unyielding. The Dominion's pride was always built on the illusion of absolute command. They never learned to doubt the words of their masters. Now every word is a blade they must hold against their own throat. Ven nodded, his eyes returning to the relay grid as the infiltration vectors completed their final phase. "Let them bleed through the chaos they once forced on us." Outside, Earth's fleet held its formation, the cold glow of their hulls an answer to the Dominion's flailing movements. No weapon had been fired, yet Dominion ships drifted, turning weapons inward as they followed orders that led them into each other's line of fire. One of Earth's forward scouts reported back, his voice steady. "Commander, the Dominion's outer flanks have begun engaging each other. They do not see us as their enemy. They see each other as the threat." Ben's lips thinned in a quiet line of resolve. "Hold position. Let the Dominion's own hands complete this work." On the Dominion Council's High Command bridge, the final fracture appeared. Salkor's voice rose in a broken snarl, his own guards turning weapons inward as conflicting commands filled their comms. "You have doomed us," he shouted, though it was not clear to whom he spoke anymore. "You have made us fight our own shadows." On Earth's deck, Rand's silence watched this end. In that quiet, the message was clear. Earth would no longer speak to the Dominion's demands. Dominion power would be left to collapse under the weight of its own certainty. A certainty that had become a snare of their own design. Ven drew a breath, the recycled air tasting of victory that was cold and absolute. "Transmit to the Council," he ordered calmly. "The Vanguard Protocol is complete. We will not interfere further." The Dominion's words have devoured themselves. The relay grid flickered one last time, then stilled. In that silence, Earth's fleet remained a witness to the Dominion's ruin, and the weight of every unsaid word became a final testament to a victory written not in speech, but in the Dominion's own downfall. Commander Ven stood at the operations deck's central console, eyes locked on the projection of Dominion fleet formations that flickered with confusion. He said nothing of triumph as he watched alien ships drift into one another's firing arcs, each movement another testament to the Dominion's collapse. His breath stayed steady in the cool, recycled air, the tang of coppery dust from the console's micro-exegments catching faintly in his throat. Across the relay feed, Dominion vessels turned on each other with an urgency that had no discipline, only the scramble of ships that no longer believed in the commands they received. High Warlord Salkor's flagship listed as conflicting signals sparked internal gunfire, crew compartments venting air as secondary batteries swung in panic. One moment it was a line of glistening hulls, the next a mess of shuddering impacts and false maneuvers. Earth's fleets held formation, weapons powered but silent, the cold sheen of their hulls reflecting the scattered lights of the Dominion struggle. Ven kept his tone even, every command stripped of flourish. "Hold position, adjust forward scouts to relay updates, no engagement unless provoked." He watched as Dominion ships lurched, their formations no longer a blade but a scattered wreckage of once coordinated warship. "Commander," Lieutenant Corrin said, voice tight with the effort to stay composed, "we have confirmation of internal executions on multiple Dominion bridges. Their warlords are eliminating their own captains." Ben's eyes did not flicker from the data feed. "They're purging those they think have turned traitor. Our false commands seeded that fear. Let it run its course." On one relay, Dominion Captain Harcourt's last transmission was caught in a burst of static, the image of his narrow face twisted in disbelief, as his own guard's weapon was leveled at his chest. "We followed orders," he said, voice ragged with the betrayal that had no explanation. "We did as commanded." A single shot ended the transmission. Ven's jaw tightened, but he gave no sign of satisfaction. This was not celebration, it was conclusion. The relay grid map updated in measured pulses, showing ships once aligned, now drifting into each other's range. Dominion frigates, built to move with the grace of hunters, collided like cornered animals in their own confusion. Bright slashes of discharge lit the darkness as orders to withdraw collided with orders to advance. In those fleeting moments, the Dominion's pride became a slow implosion. Every breath of air from ruptured hulls, another testament to Earth's cold refusal to speak. Director Learn's voice came through the secured line, calm and without the need for explanation. "Commander, Dominion fleet elements in Sector Travak have turned their guns inward. They believe betrayal is everywhere." Ven replied, voice low. "Their belief is what destroys them. We will not answer with our guns, unless they force our hand." Across the observation deck, the steady flicker of data feeds showed the Dominion's warlords shifting from disbelief to blind reaction. Lord Innick's flagship was a silhouette in the relay feed, turning weapons on a fellow cruiser under the suspicion of mutiny that had been whispered into the relay's false commands. Some Dominion ships faltered, their movements hesitant, unsure whether to retreat or strike. Others lunged forward, driven by captains who saw only enemies in the confusion. The shudder of impacts rolled through the observation feed as the Dominion war machine began to devour itself. Corin's voice came again, measured but edged in awe. "Commander, we're detecting Dominion distress signals. Some are begging for ceasefire, others demanding vengeance against each other." Ven watched without reaction. "Acknowledge, none. This is their collapse, not our dialogue." In the command center's shadow, Admiral Rand stood, unmoved. He said nothing, his presence a silent anchor that needed no translation. His gaze did not shift from the relay grid, the flickering arcs of alien ships turning to ruin. In that silence, every man on the deck found the same message. Earth would not trade words for false peace, would not buy safety with explanation. Tremor of alarm flickered across the relay as Salkor's flagship fired broadside into a Dominion destroyer that had once answered its call. Bright light flared in the relay's cold feed, the bright arc of detonations swallowing the destroyer in a single blast. Grass leaned in, voice quiet as he spoke. "They're killing each other in the name of order that doesn't exist anymore." Ben's eyes stayed fixed. They built a world where every word was law. Now they can't decide which law to obey. The cold of the observation deck seemed sharper as Earth's fleet watched, every man on the deck understanding that this was not conquest by Earth's guns, but by the Dominion's own need to command. Learn's voice came over the channel again. "The Council has confirmed. No engagement unless directly targeted. Let them finish what they began." Ven's voice was calm. "Understood." The Dominion's communications channels filled with broken phrases and shouted accusations, each one an echo of an empire that had once believed the power to speak was the power to control. Now, stripped of the certainty of a single voice, their warlords turned weapons on their own. A sudden flash of energy in the projection showed another Dominion flagship crumpling under the weight of internal fire. Its forward batteries erupted inward, a silent testament to the end of a fleet's faith in its own orders. Corin's voice was barely above a whisper. "Commander, they're devouring themselves." Ven's jaw tightened, breath steady in the cold recycled air. "We hold steady. This ends when they no longer have the will to give another order." As the relay feed showed ship after ship breaking formation, Earth's own ships stayed locked in disciplined silence. No shot fired, no word spoken. Earth's presence was the silent witness to an enemy's disintegration. Rand's eyes remained steady, his silence a final verdict against every Dominion claim of authority. Ven felt the weight of that verdict in his chest. Not triumph, not pride, only the certainty of an end that had been shaped not by Earth's weapons, but by the Dominion's own need to hear itself speak. In the cold glow of the observation deck, the last Dominion warlord's broadcast cut out in a static-laced scream of defiance that found no answer. Ven turned from the projection, his voice low. "Transmit to the Council. The Dominion's fleet no longer functions as a single force. They are scattered." He paused, breath steady. "We will maintain formation. Earth speaks no more." Ren gave no sign of acknowledgement. He did not need to. His silence remained the final command. The quiet certainty that Earth had never needed to answer the Dominion's demands, to break them. And so the fleet held steady, every man watching as the Dominion's last illusions of control fell away, leaving only the cold silence of a people who had never surrendered the right to refuse. The Dominion's final cries for dialogue clattered against Earth's silent watch, each broken broadcast a testament to a power that could not understand refusal. Earth's council chamber on Garrick's watch glowed in the cold white light of the tactical consoles, every feed stripped down to the raw data of ship movement and Dominion relay collapse. There was no need for further analysis. The enemy's words had become their own chains, and those chains had already broken. Director Learn stood at the center of the chamber, eyes calm as he keyed the final directive into the Council's broadcast relay. His voice was steady and without inflection. Earth will no longer acknowledge any Dominion transmission. Their final appeals end here. His words carried the weight of absolute decision, the echo of years spent in debate and compromise, now silenced in a single breath. The officers around him listened without reaction. Each man understood the simplicity of that final order. There would be no more negotiations, no final parley to soothe alien pride. Commander Venn leaned against the edge of the console, the hard surface biting into his palms as he watched Learn's hand hover over the transmit control. "Director," Venn said quietly, "do you require a confirmation relay from the fleet?" Learn's gaze stayed on the silent relay grid, Dominion ships drifting in slow, uncertain circles in the relay's cold light. "No," he said. "Our silence is our confirmation. Let every Earth ship carry it in their transponder. No further words, no further explanations." Outside the viewport, Earth's ships turned in measured arcs, their cold hulls catching the glare of distant stars. There was no fanfare to their movements, no sharp angles of combat readiness. They moved with the finality of a blade returning to its sheath. Withdrawal, as deliberate as any advance. Ben's breath fogged in the recycled chill of the chamber. He drew in the faint smell of coolant from the console's conduits, the distant tang of ozone where circuit heat met the cold of orbit. "The Dominion's final broadcasts are still trickling through the relay spectrum," he said. "They're calling it Earth's surrender by silence." Learn's lips barely moved as he replied, "Let them believe it. They need the lie to hold their own ranks together. We owe them no correction." He pressed the final key. The Council's order echoed out across Earth's fleet, carried in the cold data of encrypted signatures. No more transmissions would be received, no alien voice given weight in human space. On the operations deck, Rand stood by the viewport, his presence silent and absolute. He had not spoken since the day he was recovered. His refusal to give the Dominion a single word mirrored now in the final posture of every Earth ship. His silence had become the doctrine of Earth's future. No words given to those who would twist them, no voice lent to those who would chain it. Commander Drass approached the viewport, his breath slow and measured. "Their last broadcasts sound more like confession than demand," he said, voice low. "It's as though they don't believe their own calls for surrender anymore." Venn did not turn from the viewport. They built their power on the assumption that words would always have weight. We took that from them. The chamber's screens showed Dominion ships drifting further apart, some turning back toward their home sectors, others lingering like lost creatures in the dark. Earth's fleets began to withdraw in disciplined arcs. No rush in their movements, no need to exploit an enemy already broken by its own expectations. "Commander," Learn said, his voice calm as he watched the data streams update. "Transmit to our forward scouts. Confirm full withdrawal of Earth's vessels from Dominion space. No engagement, no commentary." Venn keyed the directive, his finger steady on the console. "Transmission acknowledged. Scouts are aligning withdrawal vectors now." He turned back to Learn. "And when they call again, when they find the courage to speak once more?" Learn's eyes met his, no hesitation in the calm steel of his stare. "They will find no ear to listen." The deck around them settled into a rhythm of quiet readiness. Officers monitored the retreat paths, fingers brushing across tactile controls with practiced care. The soft brush of uniforms as they moved in disciplined lines, the faint crackle of recycled air through the chamber's vents. These were the only sounds that filled the room. Outside, the Dominion's last appeals faded from the comm spectrum, each alien transmission unanswered, each word dissolving into static. There was no final retort from Earth, no voice to match the alien desperation. Venn watched the ships of Earth's fleet align, their cold geometry a testament to discipline that required no explanation. "They will remember this," he said, his tone quiet. "Not as conquest, not as surrender, but as silence that they cannot break." Rand did not move from his watch by the viewport. His presence alone was enough. a final shape to the refusal that had ended a war of words before it began. As the last of the withdrawal orders transmitted, Learn spoke one final command. Seal the Council's records. Let the memory of this moment be carried in Earth's silence alone. The transmission locks engaged with a soft click, final in its simplicity. Across Earth's fleet, no man would speak of these last hours. They would carry the memory, in the surety of what they had refused to become. A voice forever bending to alien will. In the cold light of the observation deck, the final silence settled like a weight over every man present. The Dominion's broadcasts fell to static, the endless push of their words finally meeting the immovable fact of Earth's refusal. Ben exhaled slowly, the recycled air tasting of the end. "Commander to all ships," he said quietly into the secured link. "We return to Earth's watch. Let no word pass between us and the Dominion again." His voice was the last to be spoken in the chamber, the final breath of Earth's defiance made flesh. And then the quiet claimed them, the last Dominion frequencies falling away into nothing, leaving only the cold geometry of Earth's ships moving homeward. Ran watched from his station, his silence an unbroken line that needed no translation. And Earth's fleets moved as one, turning away from the alien broadcasts that had once demanded an answer. The final orders had been given, and no voice would speak them again. The relay map faded from the observation deck, each Dominion transmission falling into static as Earth's fleet drew back into quiet patrol. Van watched the last alien broadcasts vanish from the channels, the data feeds empty of any further entreaty or threat. He stood straight, his face set with a calm finality that left no room for lingering debate. Director Learn shifted his weight, voice low but carrying the steady tone of final command. "This marks the end of the Dominion's voice in our world. Their last words have fallen to silence. They will not speak again to Earth's name." The room stayed still as the officers took in the meaning. There was no need to mark the moment with celebration. Each man knew that in silence, Earth had claimed the last word. Rand stood near the viewport, posture unmoving. He had given no voice since his return, yet his presence carried a weight that held the Council's final pronouncement in place. The quiet in the room wrapped around him like a mantle, a testament to what Earth had chosen to carry forward. Commander Drass cleared his throat, the only shift in the calm of the deck. "Director, our withdrawal is complete. Earth's fleets are aligned to the patrol arcs. There are no new signals from the Dominion's last defense stations." Learn nodded once. "The Dominion's reach ends here. There will be no further negotiation, no line left for them to draw in our skies." Glenn's gaze stayed locked on the viewport, where Earth's ships held formation in the black of space, the steady glow of status lights a testament to their unity. They built their power on the assumption that Earth would always answer. Now they have learned that some answers are given in silence alone. A data officer's voice came from the lower deck. "Commander, Dominion frequencies have ceased entirely. Their last broadcast looped for an hour, then cut to static." Ven let out a quiet breath. Let that be the last record of their command. The final orders rolled through the fleet with an efficiency that needed no emphasis. Encrypted signatures carried the new doctrine to every patrol ship, every relay post. No man would speak of it beyond the quiet transmission. Earth would no longer give voice to the Dominion's demands. Rand shifted his weight slightly, his gaze as steady as when they had first found him in that cold Dominion cell. Learn turned to him, his own voice measured, the last statement that needed to be spoken. "Admiral, your silence has become our standard. No words to answer those who would erase them." Rand did not nod, nor did his eyes flicker with any acknowledgement. Yet Ven felt the certainty in that quiet acceptance, a resolve that would outlast any broadcast. Beyond the flagship's viewports, the Dominion's abandoned relay stations stood as cold towers, no longer pulsing with alien commands. The corridors of those relay nodes, once filled with Dominion voices, now echoed with nothing but the memory of defeat. Grass leaned in, his voice low. "Commander, do you believe they'll try again? Another council, another empire in their place?" Ben's expression remained unreadable. Maybe. But they will not find Earth willing to answer them in the language they demand. Learn spoke, his tone final. Earth's doctrine is set. There will be no further dialogue. Let them rebuild whatever illusions they need to survive. Our silence is the only reply they will ever have. The command deck grew still as the fleet adjusted its courses, engines thrumming in the hold of each ship but carrying no sense of final movement. The withdrawal was methodical, no sign of rush or retreat. It was the slow turning away of a power that no longer cared to meet another's eyes. Fenn's breath felt sharp in the chill air, the scent of recycled metal from the console's conduits cutting through the quiet. His fingers tapped the edge of the console as he issued the last orders to the fleet, each word deliberate. Maintain patrol arcs at sector boundaries. No incursions, no transmissions. We are done here. Rand's silence remained unbroken, a final echo that needed no sound to carry the weight of refusal. Learn's gaze met Ven's, and in that shared look there was no triumph, only the understanding of what had been secured in the decision to never speak again. Drass broke the quiet one last time. What will history make of this? Of a silence that spoke louder than any declaration. Ven's lips thinned, the lines of his jaw set. History will remember Earth's choice, that no empire has the right to shape our words or demand our voices. The Dominion's final defeat was never in their ships. It was in the day Earth chose not to answer. The deck fell into a measured calm as Earth's ships began their steady withdrawal. The last signals of Dominion command, flickering with final desperation, fell to nothing in the static of empty frequencies. Each man on the operations deck understood that this was not the end of a battle. It was the end of every Dominion attempt to define Earth's identity. Rand turned from the viewport, his presence a quiet shadow that spoke the final verdict more clearly than any broadcast. His refusal had become doctrine. Earth would never again trade its voice for another empire's comfort. The data feeds dimmed, the last Dominion channels severed by Earth's deliberate silence. Learn gave the final order, voice as calm as the air around him. Lock down the relay spectrum. Earth speaks no further. Outside, Earth's ships slipped from the edges of the Dominion's fractured territories, their departure leaving behind only the cold geometry of the abandoned relay towers. No celebration followed, no final broadcast to mark the end. Rand's silence carried them home, each man in Earth's fleet knowing that some victories are not measured in shouts or banners. They are measured in the choice to refuse what was once unthinkable, to deny. In that cold, quiet withdrawal, Earth's independence was written in the spaces between every unsaid word. The Dominion's last echoes fell into the black, and Earth's ships moved onward, beyond the reach of any empire that would demand they speak again. The story closed in the measured quiet of that final departure, Earth's doctrine secure in the silence that no alien voice would ever shape. What did you think of Earth's final silent stand? Would you choose words or silence in the face of a superior enemy? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more epic HFY stories like this one.